What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Trend. I'm your host, Dario Kristen, and joining me is Courtney Stewart. How you doing, Courtney?
Hello, hello, hello. Back again.
Back again. And we got a very special guest who's back with us
Oh,
today. Well, for the first time, but she's with us today.
yes.
Olivia Morris is in the house. What's up, Olivia?
Hi, it's so nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks
Welcome,
for being
welcome.
here. You've been blowing up the spot, doing a lot of things across the board on social media and active, and got the show The Tea. Tell us all about The Tea, because it's got a different spin than what most people think the tea is.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the tea is absolutely a double entendre. It refers to the drink that we're drinking on the show, but also the tea that you're spilling amongst friends. Essentially, I've always loved drinking tea. I'm having some warm vanilla chai tonight.
Ooh,
I
lovely.
always think that the basis of wellness and self-care is checking in with yourself and just pausing. And I think that's what a cup of tea always does, right? You have to heat up the water, you have to steep it, you have to wait. It's hot even while you're drinking. You have to be really patient. And so I think that drinking tea along with conversation, they just go really hand in hand. So about 6 months ago, during the height of the pandemic, I was feeling kind of isolated, missed my friends, and I thought it would be a great way to kind of just check in and connect with people. Some of them are friends, some of them are new friends, but we talk about career advice, wellness, self-care, current events, things like that, but always over a fresh hot cup of tea.
Well,
Lovely.
so was this something that you have always wanted to do, and just kind of like pivoted your way into this, or like where did your love for the combination of the tea, getting the tea and spilling the tea at the same time?
It actually started in high school. You know, a lot of people growing up, they might hang out at the mall or the movie theater or something like that. But me and my girlfriends always hung out at the tea shop. So I always would sit around with my friends and we all had our favorite teas. Mine was matcha when I was in high school. And we would hang out there for hours, multiple times a week. My mom and I drink tea together. I would have tea dates, standing tea dates with my friends where we'd talk over the phone and drink tea. So it's always been a ritual in my life. And really just extending it to the platform of Instagram was just almost a natural extension of what I do every day.
Mm. Can you talk to us a little bit about your your career choice to move into content creation and the world of social media, and how that came to you, how you decided that's a space you wanted to be in, and how you determined yourself to navigate it as a professional and not just as, a consumer?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've always worked in entertainment since I was really young. I was an actress. I used to do professional musical theater and tour and do shows. And so being in front of the camera is something that I'm pretty comfortable doing ever since I was quite young. And I used to work in development, which basically means the buying side of entertainment. So if someone would come in and pitch a show, it was my job to buy that show. I used to work at Nickelodeon and DreamWorks and TBS and various networks and production companies. And I realized that I loved being on the side of the desk where I was, in a position of power and buying the shows. But my real first love was always with creation and being a performer. So it's kind of fun marrying the two loves with the show.
Yeah, and then even with your show, you've had a variety of different guests and well-known guests as well. Who has been some of your favorites that you've had a chance to talk with?
That's a great question. I really love talking with Karen Parsons. You know, she's best known as being Hillary on Fresh Prince, but she also founded a nonprofit called Sweet Blackberry, and they tell stories of little known African American achievement. So I actually used to work at Sweet Blackberry with Karen many years ago. And so it was fun catching up with her as girlfriends, but also as producers and kind of talking about some of the projects she was working on. I love talking to Janelle Monae. That was a really exciting episode. We actually had her on November 2nd, the day before the election. And so it was kind of at the time, at the height of collective anxiety, so I'll say. And she really was able to speak to the heart of what it means to be an activist during the revolution. And that means as an artist, she was talking about the music she likes to create and what kind of artists and art really feeds her soul and kind of nourishes her artistic medium. But she also talked a lot about self-care, which I emphasize a lot on the show. And she talked about, finding moments for calm and peace and saying no to things and always checking in with yourself and taking those moments for self-care. So I love that that conversation and really the duality of like when to create and when to not create. And also reminding people the importance of voting. You know, people really follow her and her platform. So being able to just have that last moment of like, if you guys aren't voting, what are you doing? Like having that real frank conversation was really timely and urgent.
Yeah. Well, speaking to the sort of, I mean, you have your pulse on like the social media content creation world, clearly, and you've also worked in, like you said, development. So how do you sort of see, or what do you see as the evolution of what we are doing in content creation and social media and its effect on culture just in general, like moving forward? What would you say you think, if you could, you know, look in your crystal ball, like how do you see it evolving?
Yeah, that's a great question. It used to be a time where only highly specialized VFX artists could create, you know, captions and motion graphics and things like that on top of videos. And now children can do it with TikTok, right? And I can't even follow TikTok. I'm just outside of the age bracket where I'm just like, my hips don't sway that way. I wish they did. But I really, really admire it. And I think that it's causing people to realize that content creation is really in the power of the hand and really in the power of the second, right? You can see something and within 1 second, you know, if you want to engage with it, swipe right, swipe left, tab, share, anything. So I think it's causing people to really be really mindful and cognizant of the kind of content they're putting out, because it's really easy to get lost in the noise, right? So it's important to have salient points, be really intentional with what your content is, and make sure you're connecting with your audience. I think that's something else that's really new. Except for when you're talking about traditional talk shows, when they kind of had audience feedback in real time back in the 90s and before the 90s, of course. But that, other than that, there's not a real-time audience engagement that happens with traditional content. But on social media, you have that real-time feedback. You can see what's being liked, what's being shared. You can see, you know, I do IG live, so you can see people, you know, leaving comments and trying to be a part of the conversation. We'll play games. People will try to answer the questions within, you know, the live sessions. And so you have to be really aware of who your audience is and not cater to them, but it's really more of a conversation. I like to look at it as more of a conversation than followers, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is so much content out there, what is something that you feel is a message that you really want people to take away from the content that you put out there?
Yeah, I really want people to think that no voice is too small is something that I'm constantly telling myself. No voice is too small, and don't be afraid to find your voice, own your voice, and activate it. I think a lot of times that fear will hold you back from doing that. And for many years, I was in the not the backseat, but I certainly wasn't in the spotlight in all the jobs that I was having. And it was really my job to really help foster and shape the person who was in the spotlight. So in stepping into that light, I think it's important to kind of convey that message of owning your own voice. Another quote that I love so much, that I'm paraphrasing, but it's a Maya Angelou quote. She says something to the effect of, there's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you.
Yeah.
And I love that so much, because so much of what we're doing really at the heart of it is just storytelling. And so I love diverse voices. I love voices from marginalized communities. So that's another big message that I want to take away is, if you do feel otherized in some way, know that there's a home for you.
And then what keeps you motivated when you are creating content and keeps you like, you know, down the path of the bigger picture?
It's two things. I would say it's art and rest. It's both. So on the active side, I would say I love interviewing multi-hyphenates. I myself am a multi-hyphenate, and I love I think multi-hyphenates need to eat by looking at different mediums of art. So I would say reading books, listening to new music, poetry, visual art. I mean, we've been starving from visual art for the past year since the pandemic. So I've done some virtual art galleries. I just went to the art museum for the first time a couple of days ago in a year and a half. It was like amazing. It was
Oh,
amazing.
man.
The world is
Yeah, I was
opening
like,
up, right?
yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, yes, it's still socially distant. You had a mask, but just being able to take in a piece of art again is such a big part of the experience. But I will say also resting, this morning I had a pile of scripts that I needed to read that, as a producer, I'm constantly getting incoming submissions, but I chose to read them in a bubble bath. Thursday mornings, bubble bath every Thursday, which sounds, very luxurious. And in some ways it is. I think that, self-care has been commodified. And, a lot of people say that you have to spend a lot of money in order to, practice these wellness rituals. But I think taking naps, taking walks, drinking water, drinking tea, things like that are self-care. So that keeps me motivated. Is when I'm at my best is when I'm rested and calm and grounded and centered.
It sounds like you have a really good handle on who you are, what centers you, and what self-care is so important. A lot of us don't do it all the time because of you're just grinding away, and you're running, and you're doing your day-to-day thing, and you don't really take time to like have that alone moment where it really is beneficial for you, just not only physically but mentally.
Yeah, and mental wellness is so important. It's May, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And, I'm someone who hit a wall really young and really early in my career. I was 20, 21, something like that. And I had a complete mental burnout from my body, my mind, my spirit. I had to leave work for a few weeks. I had to completely regroup. And if that hadn't happened to me, I don't think that I would be such an advocate for self-care as I am today. It's not something that I really thought about. You go a mile a minute, especially when I was in college. I had just come out of college. So I was like young and spry and had all the energy in the world. I lived in New York too. So, New York never sleeps. I never slept. But it became really important for me to pause and do something completely differently. So I always share that story because I think it's so easy to kind of talk about the parts of self-care that are like massages and like getting facials and like all that stuff is wonderful and I love it. But sometimes it's also like, people don't talk about, depressive episodes very much, or they don't talk about what anxiety looks like for different people or things like that. So I think it's, especially in the Black community, it's really critical that we have those real conversations with each other.
Yeah, going back to that moment though, of that sort of break for you, was it apparent to you in that time? Did you just know something was wrong and you had like a unit to reach out to, like parents or what have you? Like, how did you navigate your way through that? Because I mean, 21 is very young to have that moment and to actually recognize that you're having that moment.
Yeah.
So like, how did you
Yeah.
do that?
It wasn't me. I did not have the wherewithal at all to notice it myself. I was very fortunate to have a really strong community around me. So it was a matter of my parents, my cousins, my friends. And it wasn't as formal as like a roundtable intervention or anything like that, but it was a few comments here and there where everyone was like, I'm checking in. Are you okay? I want to make sure. And it came to a point where I was like, something's not right. I'm not feeling totally like myself. I really need to like regroup and figure this out. So I think that we will talk about the beauty of having a tribe. Another guest that I had on the show is Janelle, and his song Tribe, I think, is a perfect song for talking about like your clique or your crew. And I think that tribe and that community is so critical that's another reason why I wanted to really start the Tea, is to create a community of accountability.
Oh, dope.
Smart. So smart.
You have any exciting new guests coming up on your show?
I do, yes. So for season 3, we're starting on Tuesday. We have King Batch coming on Tuesday evening, which will be really exciting. Who else is coming on? We have Kalen Allen is coming on. He's a media influencer personality, super, super funny. Just got familiar with him. I'm excited to make a new friend. Who else is coming on? We have a lot of guests that I can't quite mention yet. Trying to think, who else can I mention? George Lopez is going to be on the show, which will be really fun. Yeah, I think I've only had Well, other than King Batch who's coming on, I haven't had any like proper comedians on the show. So that should be really fun to have someone who can really talk about, a long legacy in the field, in the business. And also, a champion for the Latinx community. As I said, I love championing diverse voices. And I was watching his most recent stand-up that was on Netflix recently. And I realized that 40% of the jokes went over my head, even though I speak Spanish. And that was really exciting for me. I was like, I'm not the audience for this. And I still like love it. And I can still get behind it. So I'm really excited to bring him on the show too.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Well, congratulations for all the work that you're doing. I mean, we're excited that you were able to join us today, and we look forward to even seeing, the next stages of your career and how it's blossoming, because you're doing big things. And for people who are listening today and watching today, where can they find out more information about you on social media and even just your show and guests that are coming up?
Yeah, everything is on my Instagram. So it's at Olivia_Charmaine, CHARMAINE, and everything's on there. So we promote the show on there. I'll talk about new guests that are coming on. Also, as I mentioned, I'm a film and TV producer. So I have some projects that I'm working on. I'm shooting an independent feature this summer. So I'll be on set, behind the scenes, everything. So definitely follow along. And I'm excited to have you on the journey.
Cool. Wait, do we get a little hint of what the independent feature is about?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's called Drayana Grooms. And that is based on a true story. So Drayana was 16, living in the south side of Chicago, and essentially was in the middle of gang violence and in the wrong place at the wrong time, as we so often are. Someone was murdered, and she was basically charged with first-degree murder. And it basically tracks her time in jail from the time she was 16 to 19, and she was eventually acquitted, thank goodness. And the charges were dropped. But it's based on her true story of what it was like for those 3 years being incarcerated.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think so often when we tell these stories of these crimes, true crime stories, they're from a young Black male's perspective. But I think, going and digging into the psyche of a young Black girl is so different. I've never really seen it done before. And, my mom's from the south side of Chicago. I have friends from Chicago as well. So it's definitely a story we're telling for the community, as opposed to like, on behalf of the community. They're very involved. Drayana actually is a co-writer of the script, which is phenomenal. Yeah, she wrote it alongside our director. And so having her along the way, she's helping with casting choices and helping us pick locations and everything. So having her along the way, I think, is really special. Ordinarily, Hollywood kind of comes in and finds a story and runs with it, but we're choosing to do the opposite. So I'm really grateful.
That's very exciting and inspiring. So
yeah.
Congratulations. We love hearing it.
Because filmmaking is not easy.
It is not an easy
job. I've never done it before. I've only ever worked in television.
Yeah.
My first movie ever. And oh my goodness, it's hard. Fundraising, not fundraising, but finding the financing and finding sales agents and production company partners and all this stuff. We are doing it. We're figuring it out. And we're going to be shooting in July. So it's right around the corner.
Cool.
Good thing is, I feel like for projects for people of color now, there's a little bit more accessibility to get these things greenlit. So
yeah,
we got to continue that fight.
Yeah, and especially after the height of the civil unrest that we had last year and coming into this year with the trial and everything, it became a global conversation. So even as we're talking to these international sales agencies and companies and things like that, they're having to reckon with how they have dealt with Black lives as well. So I think, it's important to know that, yes, it is a Chicago story and it's an American story and it is it's a local story, but it has universal themes and I think appeal. So we're definitely trying to make sure that anyone who's interested in sitting at the intersection of art and activism, which is where my heart lies, would find something in this movie that would appeal to them.
Dope. I can't wait to see it.
Love it. Love to hear it.
I love to see it too.
Courtney, where can fans find you and all the projects you're working on as well?
I am all over the social media world at Stuart Starlet, and you guys make sure you follow our show here at we are_the trend. That's our new handle that we have to rebuild our numbers because our other one got shut down. So
Oh
go on and
no.
click our follow, y'all. Go on and click our follow.
Yes, I will absolutely do that and promote you guys. That just happened to my business page as well. So my company's called Black Monarch and the account got hacked. So I had to shut it down and we're starting from scratch. So I feel
over again.
it's okay. Number, if you
It's
build,
okay.
they will come.
Yes.
If you build it, they will come. They will.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You just keep working and it'll all come and work out. So it's fine.
Yes.
Well, Olivia, thank you again. We'll have to have you back, especially when it's around your independent
movie.
and we'll promote it. Make sure everybody knows about it. And thank you for coming on today as a guest.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, guys. Nice to meet you.
It was a
Nice to meet you
pleasure.
too.